What if the single biggest problem in your life right now has nothing to do with strategy, discipline, or information? What if you have been solving the wrong problem entirely? There is a book that has never gone out of print since 1946. A book that sat on Steve Jobs' desk, Bill Gates' desk, and Paul McCartney's desk. Three of the most consequential minds in modern history, operating in completely different fields, all arrived at the exact same book. Jobs loved it so much he made it the only book downloaded onto every attendee's iPad at his memorial service. Gates called it genuinely mind-expanding. McCartney kept returning to it across decades. Here is what is strange. Almost nobody talks about what is actually inside it. Not what it represents, not what it symbolizes, but what it literally documents, what it claims to prove, and what it means for how you are living your life right now. Before we go any further, I want to be clear about what this video is not going to be. This is not a comfortable summary. This is not a highlight reel of inspiring quotes wrapped in soft music. I am not here to make the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda feel safe or digestible or easy to dismiss. What I am going to do is show you what this book actually documents, what it actually proves, and why. If even a fraction of it is true, most people, including you, have spent their entire lives solving the wrong problem. Not the wrong solution, the wrong problem entirely. That is a different kind of error. It means the effort was real, the intention was real, and the result was still guaranteed to fall short. That is what is on the table here. So if you are willing to stay with that, let us go. Now here is where the book stops being philosophy and starts being something harder to dismiss. The autobiography of a yogi is not a collection of spiritual impressions or poetic metaphors. It is a documented record of physically impossible events, each one backed by named witnesses, verifiable dates, and in several cases, notarized letters submitted for public record. The first case Yogananda presents is Giribala, a woman who consumed zero food and zero water for over 50 years. This was not a rumor. The Maharaja of Burdwan personally investigated her. Multiple physicians examined her across extended observation periods. She did not claim divine favor or supernatural blessing. She described what she did as a science, a specific learned mechanism with a specific internal process behind it. Not a miracle, a science. That distinction is the entire point. Because miracles require nothing from you. Science, on the other hand, implies a repeatable process, which implies that someone else could learn it. Two more events from the book demand serious attention. Swami Pranabhananda appeared simultaneously in two completely separate cities. Independent witnesses in both locations confirmed his presence at the same moment. This is called bilocation, and it is not presented as rumor. Named individuals in named places reported what they saw. A separate yogi physically rose off the ground during meditation. Witnesses were present. The event was recorded. What makes these accounts unusual is not just what happened, but how Yogananda describes them. There is no dramatic language, no breathless amazement. He writes about bilocation and levitation the way an engineer describes a circuit completing. These are outcomes. They follow from inputs. The tone carries a specific implication that is easy to miss on a first reading. These events are not being presented as exceptions to reality. They are being presented as results. Expected results. From understood processes. That distinction changes everything about how the rest of the book should be read. Now, here is where the evidence becomes genuinely difficult to dismiss. Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, passed away. What followed was documented not by a devotee, not by a believer, but by the mortuary director responsible for the body. Sri Yukteswar's body showed absolutely zero signs of physical decay for 20 days. Not minimal decay. Zero. The mortuary director put this in writing. A signed, notarized letter. That letter was published. Time magazine reported on it. This is not folklore passed down through oral tradition. This is a notarized legal document that entered the public record and was covered by one of the most widely read publications in the world. Here is what matters most. That letter exists today. It has never been disputed. No investigator has challenged it. No scientist has refuted it. In a world where extraordinary claims get extraordinary scrutiny, This one has simply sat there undisturbed waiting for someone to take it seriously. Here is where most people make a critical error. When they encounter this evidence, they split into two camps. The first group dismisses it entirely as fraud, fabrication, or mass delusion. The second group elevates it to miracle, something divine and unrepeatable, reserved for saints and chosen figures. Here is what nobody notices. Both responses are functionally identical. Both allow you to stay exactly where you are. If it is fraud, you do not have to examine it. If it is miracle, you cannot replicate it. Either way, nothing changes for you. But there is a third option that neither camp will consider. What if these events are neither fake nor miraculous? What if they are the documented results of a science the world encountered too early and abandoned before it had the tools to understand it? That question is not comfortable, but it is the only one worth asking. So where does all of this come from? What is the actual framework behind these documented events? 2,000 years ago, a scholar named Patanjali wrote something that has never been fully replaced. The Yoga Sutras. 196 verses. Not poetry. Not philosophy in the loose modern sense. A technical map encoding the precise relationship between consciousness and physical reality. Patanjali did not describe these outcomes as miracles. He did not use language of the divine or the supernatural. He called them siddhis, natural perfections. And he listed them the way a chemistry textbook lists reactions. Input, conditions, process, output. If you do this, under these conditions, for this duration, this result follows. Not sometimes. Not for the spiritually gifted. Inevitably. That word is important. Inevitably. Because it means these are not exceptions to reality. According to Patanjali, they are what reality actually does when consciousness is trained to sufficient depth. Patanjali was not alone in this discovery. Hermetic texts from ancient Egypt state it directly. As above, so below, as within, so without. Zoroastrian Persia built an entire cosmology around consciousness as the originating force behind material existence. Taoist China described the Tao as the invisible intelligence from which all visible form continuously arises. 4 independent civilizations, separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years, arrived at the same conclusion without consulting each other. The central claim is this: physical reality is not the foundation. Consciousness is the foundation. What you see, touch, and measure is downstream of something deeper. And a consciousness trained to sufficient depth can alter what appears downstream in ways the untrained mind can only file under impossible. So here is the question worth sitting with before we go further. What would it mean for your life if this were even 30% true? Now here is where this gets personal. The kind of stuck being described here is not laziness. It is not lack of information. It is not lack of effort. You have read the books. You have implemented the systems. You have worked harder than most people around you. And still, there is a ceiling. The same income level returns no matter what strategy you try. The same relationship dynamic appears with completely different people. The same self-sabotage activates at the precise moment things start going well, as if something inside you pulls the emergency brake right before the breakthrough. The yogic framework has a specific explanation for this. That pattern is not operating at the level of behavior or strategy or conscious choice. It is operating at a layer the conscious mind cannot directly see, cannot directly reach, and therefore cannot fix using the tools the conscious mind has access to. Now here is where the autobiography becomes genuinely uncomfortable, and most people instinctively want to look away. The claim is this: the external world you inhabit right now is not a rough approximation of your internal world. It is a perfect mirror of it. Every single moment. Look at your closest relationships. Their quality reflects the precise quality of the relationship you have with yourself. Not approximately. Precisely. Look at your income. Whatever ceiling keeps appearing reflects an internal belief about what level of reality belongs to someone like you. Not someone in general. You specifically. Look at your recurring obstacles. The difficult colleague who keeps appearing in different companies. The opportunity that collapses at the same stage every time. The pattern that shows up wearing completely different costumes but is always, underneath, the identical shape. These are not bad luck. These are not coincidence. According to Yogananda, these are your internal architecture rendered visible in physical form. Karma is not a cosmic score sheet tallying your moral failures. It is precise feedback. The universe returns to you in external form the exact content of your internal state. Not approximately. Exactly. This reframes everything. Changing the external without changing the internal is not just ineffective, it is structurally impossible. You are not rearranging outcomes. You are rearranging furniture in front of a mirror and wondering why the reflection keeps showing the same room. The mirror updates every time, but the pattern underneath does not move. This is why people leave relationships and recreate the identical dynamic with someone new. Why they change jobs and find the same frustrations wearing a different company name. Why they move cities and arrive with every pattern fully intact. The geography changes, the circumstances change, the cast changes. But the internal state generating the reflection has not been touched, so the reflection cannot change. The feedback continues until the source does. But here is where this teaching gets genuinely uncomfortable, and most teachers quietly skip this part. If your external life is a perfect mirror of your internal state, then you are responsible for all of it. Not some of it. All of it. The successes and the failures. The people who hurt you, and the patterns that led you directly to them. Every ceiling, every repeated disappointment, every relationship that ended the same way the last one did. This is the most confronting idea in the entire yogic framework. It asks you to stop locating the source of your circumstances anywhere outside yourself. And that is an enormous thing to sit with, especially when real harm has been done. But here is why this matters more than anything else covered so far. Responsibility is the only thing that gives you actual power. The moment you accept that the source of your circumstances is internal, the ability to genuinely change them becomes real for the first time. Now here is where this entire framework gets precise. Patanjali is not a spiritual teacher in the way modern culture uses that phrase. He is a scientist and a systematizer. The Yoga Sutras is not a collection of philosophical poetry or gentle encouragement. It is a technical manual. It describes specific inputs, specific processes, and specific outputs. Patanjali does not hedge. He does not say perhaps, or in some cases, or for certain temperaments. He says do this, under these conditions, for this duration, and these results will follow. Inevitably. Not probably. Not hopefully. Inevitably. The same way a physicist describes what happens when force is applied to mass, acceleration is not a suggestion. It is the output of a precise relationship between defined variables. Patanjali is operating in the same register. He is describing the laws of consciousness the way Newton described the laws of motion. Precise, repeatable, and indifferent to whether you believe in them. Here is what Patanjali builds his entire system around. And once you understand it, everything else clicks into place. Your mind in its ordinary state is running enormous energy through a small and noisy processing system. Think about what actually happens inside your head on any given day. Most of the energy generated by your consciousness leaks directly into reaction, rumination, and constant low-grade static. The mental chatter that never fully stops. The replaying of conversations. The low hum of anxiety that has no specific object. Patanjali says beneath all of that noise is something categorically different. Not quieter thoughts. Not better thoughts. A different layer entirely. Different in quality. Different in power. And fundamentally different in its relationship to physical reality. He calls this deeper layer Purusha. Pure consciousness. The witness. The field of awareness that underlies every single experience you have ever had, without being defined by any of it. It was there before the thought. It remains after the thought dissolves. Here is the contrast that changes everything. The surface mind experiences reality as something that happens to it. Events arrive, circumstances appear, and the ordinary self reacts. It sits at the effect end of the equation. The Purusha sits at the causal end. Physical reality is downstream of it, not the other way around. This is not poetry. This is a structural claim about how reality is actually organized. And here is where it connects to modern science in a way that should stop you completely. Quantum physics has experimentally verified something called the observer effect. The act of observation changes what is observed at the quantum level. This is not theoretical. It is laboratory confirmed and has been replicated thousands of times since the double-slit experiment demonstrated it. Patanjali described this precise relationship between consciousness and physical reality 2,000 years before that experiment existed. He did not guess. He mapped it from direct internal investigation, and the map holds. Now we arrive at 6 specific secrets drawn directly from the autobiography and the Yoga Sutras. These are not motivational reframes. They are documented observations with practical consequences that begin affecting your life today. Secret 1. Thoughts are not private. Yogananda documents multiple yogis, reading the specific thoughts of people around them with remarkable precision. Not vague impressions, specific thoughts. Patanjali encodes this capacity in the Yoga Sutras as a natural consequence of reaching a particular stage of inner development. It is listed the way a textbook lists an expected outcome. Here is the practical implication that matters to you right now. The people around you are already receiving your internal state whether you choose to express it or not. Anxiety in a negotiation is legible before you say a single word. Doubt in a sales call lands in the room before you open your mouth. You are broadcasting continuously, and the people around you are receiving the actual transmission, not the performance you have carefully layered over it. Secret 2 addresses time. Yogananda documents yogis who knew future events with striking specificity. This is not presented as mysticism, but as a natural consequence of accessing a layer of reality where linear time becomes less binding. The practical implication lands hard. Your future is not being shaped mostly by your internal state today. It is being shaped entirely by it. The pattern you are running right now is already generating what comes next. Secret 3 addresses the body. After Sri Yukteswar died, he appeared to Yogananda physically and explained the mechanism directly. The body is not a fixed solid biological machine. It is a pattern of energy held in configuration by a pattern of consciousness. Spontaneous remissions from terminal illness are not medical anomalies. They are data points. In every documented case, the consciousness pattern changed profoundly enough that the physical pattern had no choice but to update and match it. Secret 4. Energy is the currency of reality, and most people are spending theirs on nothing. Constant reaction, mental noise, emotional friction, all of it drains the very resource that builds a life. Kriya Yoga reverses this. It pulls energy inward and upward through the spine, shifting the practitioner from subject to source. You stop being someone reality happens to and start being where reality originates. Secret 5 reframes the guru relationship entirely. It is not about information transfer. It is resonance. Like a tuning fork raising the frequency of a nearby string without touching it, a realized teacher transmits a state. You rise to match it. Secret 6. Deep dreamless sleep is an unconscious version of samadhi. The difference is not the state itself, but the quality of awareness entering it. Secret 7 explains why manifestation fails. Patanjali separates surface intention from deep intention. They are almost always in direct conflict. The deep intention always wins because the deep is where reality is actually being generated. There are 2 fundamentally different ways of moving through life, and most people only know one of them. Personal intention is the force of individual will applied to a desired outcome. It produces real results, genuine ones, up to the precise limit of your personal energy and leverage. But when that ceiling arrives, the only tool available is more of the same thing that has already stopped working. More effort, more strategy, more force. Patanjali calls the second mode Ishvara Pranidhana, what we might call outer intention. It is the recognition that an intelligence operates within reality orders of magnitude larger than the individual mind. Crucially, this intelligence is not external. It is the deeper layer of yourself. Here is the paradox that makes this almost impossible to use. Accessing it requires genuine surrender of the specific form the outcome takes. Every time you grip the result, monitor for it, or measure progress, you contract back into personal intention. The channel closes, and the larger force simply goes offline. Here is what the actual work looks like. Practice 1. Kriya breath, 20 minutes every morning, reversing energy inward through the spine. Practice 2. The Karma Mirror, 30 minutes each evening, using your stuck points as diagnostic tools to locate the belief generating the reflection. Practice 3. The Transmission Practice, 20 minutes in public, consciously holding a genuine internal state and watching its effect on people around you. Practice 4. The Weekly Sankalpa, 1 hour clarifying deep intention toward direction, not specific form, then releasing the outcome completely. Across 90 days, the honest cost is real. Resistance arrives first. Then the first cracks appear. Then cognitive loneliness, because almost nobody around you is doing this. Then the loss of comfortable numbness. But on the other side are connections and a life that is actually yours. You now have one choice. Return to the surface, or commit to the depth where your real life is already waiting.